It is about noon on Friday, January 23rd, I think, 2024. So here we are at the tail end of January, the last week almost. Weather right now, it's about 40, 45 degrees, maybe 50. It's actually quite nice. I'm in the sun. My jacket's open. Chased the sheep. About half of them got out to the north there. Just running around looking for grass, not finding anything. I brought them back, and they seem to be more than happy to come back, and they grabbed some water, they grabbed some minerals, and they went off to munch on the hay. Let's go take a look at the hay. I apologize for the wind noise. It is coming from the south as weather shifts towards the warmer weather pattern. I think next week it's going to be wet as the two weather systems, the North Pole and the warm Gulf of America winds mixed together to form rain, which is needed. Rain's necessary, obviously. And oh, look at those lambs, they're so pretty. Yeah. I don't see any new lambs. I'm looking, but I don't see any new ones. So they have free reign of this row. It goes all the way to the other end. I saw some poop down there, but that could have been from earlier. But here's all the hay. You can see they barely touch the hay. I don't know if they like eating hay. They probably don't like the hay very much at all. I've noticed some of the sheep are quite fat, and it's not wool or the fur. They're just naturally fat. Some of those sheep that I bought from that guy in Austin, they're just doing just fine. Other of the sheep are kind of struggling. I can see their ribs. You can tell that they're really not getting all the food that they want. They want some feed and stuff like that, but I'm not going to give it to them, unfortunately. I was going to do a light culling this next year, but I might do a heavier culling, both to get rid of those sheep that keep crossing the wire, and also those sheep that just aren't doing the best, you know. Put them up for sale at the sale barn, let somebody pick them up. You know, that Barbados is doing just fine, but this guy's doing pretty good. I don't know what, probably Barbados Dorper Cross or something. Some of these guys, like that guy there with the tan spots, she's got a little belly on her, which is what I want to see, you know. Yeah, and some of them aren't doing very well. This lady's here doing okay. I don't know if that's the one that got her. Yeah, I think she's the one that got attacked by my dog. Her right hoof, I can see there's a broken toe. The hoof, not the bone. So if I could catch her and trim that up, probably bring some comfort to her, you know. Thinking of moving all these guys tomorrow afternoon to a new row, rolling out a bale of hay for the sheep, move the cows. They can eat the old sheep that the sheep had. Maybe roll out an extra bale of hay for the cows. Maybe roll a half a bale of hay, give some to the bulls. I just moved the bulls to a new row today as well, so, you know. Yeah, these guys are not looking too bad. They are not looking bad at all, even though I am pushing them. The reason why they're escaping, so sheep tend to escape if they run out of food. If they think they can find better food somewhere else, they're going to leave that row. Once they start to get hungry, they start plotting ways to cross the wire. They know there's nothing to the south. They've already ate everything down there, but they go up to the north, and they go all the way up the north, and they're just running from spot to spot looking for something to munch on. There's nothing to munch on, you know. And if there was, I wouldn't want them to eat it at this point. So, yeah, they're looking just fine. The lambs like to hang out on the hay. I think it's warm or comfortable or whatever. Looks like the sheep like it too. So not having the cows with them is a good idea. Assuming that the wind isn't too bad, I'm going to try to talk a little bit about my thoughts on leader follower. Now, I have, basically at all times, I have 4 groups of animals that I don't want to integrate those 4 groups into smaller numbers of groups, right? It just doesn't make a lot of sense to do it that way. And if I do it, it's temporary, or it's because it's by necessity, not of my preference, right? And the 4 groups are pretty simple. We have the bulls, we have the cows, and we have the sheep and we have the rams, right? So that's the ewes and the rams, right? So it's basically each breed, each kind of animal, and then the male and female, we keep them separate. And obviously we bring the bulls and the rams on the sheep and the cows certain times of the year, right? So I would like to minimize the number of herds that I keep. And so one strategy I was using in the past was I keep the bulls with the ewes and the rams with the cows, right? And that works more or less, you know. The issue when you combine sheep and cows together is you can't feed them the same minerals, right? And it has to do with copper, it has to do with some other things, right? There's just minerals that the cows need and the minerals the sheep need are different. And you can't probably do like a free choice system where they get to choose what minerals they eat. So you just provide raw minerals instead of a mix and let them pick and choose what they want. And that might work. There goes my hat. Bye, hat. That might work. I haven't tried that yet, and I don't plan on doing that anytime soon, right? So I prefer keeping the sheep and the cow separate, right? Okay. Now I could combine the cows and the ewes together, which would be fine as long as I don't have young lambs, right? Young lambs cause problems because the lambs like to sit on the hay and the cows like to step on the hay. And so there's a chance that the cow will step on the lamb and then that's catastrophe, right? And the other reason I don't like to keep them together is the cows tend to create a lot of mud when it gets wet, and the sheep really don't like the mud. They really don't like to get wet. So keeping them separate is just a good idea, right? Okay, leader follower. So suppose I only had 2 herds that I wanted to keep separate, and I could let them stay next to each other, right? I can't let bulls and I can't let rams stay next to because the urge is just too great. I have to keep physical distance between them. In my case, I keep at least a quarter mile between them, which seems to work okay. If I could, I'd move them to different farms, you know, just so they can't, there's no possibility of them getting out and breeding off season. Okay, but suppose that I could keep them next together. So I have 2 herds that I could keep next to each other. Okay, one herd I will designate the leader, and the other herd I will designate the follower. And the way it's supposed to work, I understand, and my understanding is that the leader goes into a spot of ground and they nibble. They just grab what they want and then they're moved out, right? They go in and they go out in a matter of hours, right? Maybe 6 hours, at most like a day, right? Then the follower comes in and they get second pick, right? So the leaders ate everything that they wanted and left everything else untouched. Well, the followers, they get to choose whether to eat what's already been eaten or to eat something else, and they tend to choose something else, right? And the followers are out of there before the time is up, right? And so you're moving them rapidly and you're keeping them, one group is getting preference for what they get to eat. Now, if I'm doing the cattle and the sheep, the ewes and the cows separately like that, leader follower, well, maybe when it's time for the cows to give birth and when they have young calves, I'm having them be the leader, right? And the ewes be the followers, and vice versa. So the months leading up to when I expect the ewes to give birth, I give them preference, and then when the lambs are young, they get preference, right? Maybe I do something like that, right? Another way to think of it is you have like steer that you want to finish. You want them to get fat. But the cows, they're troopers. They don't need to get fat. They can just eat whatever is left and do fine on what that is. And so you can put the steer in front and they get fat on the fresh forage, and the cows eat whatever's left over, right? Okay. And the intention is a couple things. Number one is you don't have to keep the herds like 180 degrees separate from each other, right? So you don't have to have one herd out there, you know, and then the other herd comes by, you know, 3 months later or whatever, if you have a 6-month rotation, which is nice. That's good. Because now the ground can rest for 6 months instead of only 3 months, right? And so you have a big herd, and then nothing happens for a while, and then you have the big herd come back after 6 months or whatever, right? So it's kind of nice in that regard. You get more rest. Nobody's touching the grass for a longer period of time, right? And the other thing that's nice about it is you can do more impact, right? So if I had smaller herds spread out across my field, it would be more difficult to get those herds to do significant impact, right? Maybe I could say like, oh, well, I have 4 herds. I'll just pack them together tightly and move them 4 times a day. Well, that's 16 moves, right? Every day. So I'm just running from one spot of the field to the other. I move the animals, run to the next spot, move the animals. Yeah, that's not going to work, right? So If you have fewer herds, you can move them more often for the same amount of work. It just makes sense, right? So leader follower basically combines the herds into one movement operation. The order of operations for moving leader follower is pretty easy. You set up the new pen for the leader, you move the leader into that pen, then you move the follower into where the leader was. That's it, right? It's almost exactly the same amount of work as moving a single herd. You set up a new area for the herd, you move the herd, and that's it, right? It's just you move the one behind it after it. So that's one of the benefits, I think, of the leader follower is you get to have more often, move more often, more rest, more impact, and fewer moves, right? So what it's going to look like on my farm when I do leader follower in the spring is I'm going to have the big herds, the ewes and the cows. Leader follower, probably put the cattle in front because they're going to give birth in April, right? And then I'll have the bulls and the rams far away, somewhere else, right? And they'll just be munching on whatever they find, right? And I'll move them from time to time. I'm not going to really move them like, every 8 hours. The point of the bulls and the cows is the bulls and the rams is they're not going to do much impact, if any. They're just kind of, grazing or browsing here and there for whatever they find, and that's fine. They won't have much of an impact, and it's like as if they weren't even there, right? When I get steer, the 2 steer that I have, I'll move them with the bulls, and so now that's 4 animals, and I'll probably get rid of the other bull, so that's 3 animals, right? Just not a big deal, right, compared to the 20 cow-calf pairs, right? But then when I keep like the 10 steer back, and then next year the 10 steer back, well, that's 20 animals now that are supposed to be getting the best forage. Since they're steer, I can keep the steer in front of the cows, or with the cows. Maybe I do leader, follower, and then move the, I don't know, I'll have to think about it. I haven't really thought about exactly how it's going to work. I got to get rid of the bull, Having the bull on the farm is just a pain. I want to get rid of it and then buy another one and then get rid of it. Rent a bull would be ideal for me if I could do that. Anyway, guys, have a great day. Take care and bye-bye.